Hey folks, this is Bob. I'm back for the second one after uh, my mother's passing away. I thought I'd be back running on my feet, but I guess it's going to take more than a week or 10 days, right? It's been a month almost, but hey, I did in the meantime take a trip to Chandigarh and went up to Sanaa and came back. So here we go, right? First off, I mean, I'm going to be talking about this China deal with so much misinformation or disinformation or exaggerated information in our press, and what I think and what the world thinks anyway. But the other major event is the retaliation of Netanyahu against Iran, and it says Netanyahu opts for limited de-escalation against Iran. For the PM, main purpose of the attack appeared to be sending a clear message to Tehran that Israel can reach anywhere in Iran, but at the same time, his decision to go for limited attack shows sign of caution, which the Iranian might see as a result of their hybrid deterrence. Tehran claims it successfully countered the aggression. So maybe this is tit for tat, and maybe it stops now. But who knows in this hurly-burly of domestic politics in the United States what comes out of that. But now, in the US, what's in China, right? Why now? Why such big, huge headlines, right? Two things come to mind. Firstly, like I've always said, I don't trust the USSR, starting all the way back from Tashkent and the way they made us walk off Haji Pir Pass, right? That time, and Shastri died in mysterious circumstances in Tashkent. That was part of USSR. The second was there are assurances given by Sergei Lavrov to Jaishankar that the accumulation of the build-up of the troops in the TAR was just an exercise. And hey, right, we got a bloody nose in Galwan. We're still trying to get over it. And third is Kailash Hills. They said that they would, everything would be okay if you walked off Kailash Hills. We did, and everything has stayed the same till now, right? And what do we really got now, right? Remember one thing, there's difference between LOC, line of control, which is very well defined. LAC is line of actual control. So we keep talking about line of actual control, right? Which means whoever occupies what, that becomes a line of actual control. So has the line of actual control been redefined? It probably has, right? So that's a definitely a sense of worry there. I mean, we know the Indian side has not fully acquiesced to what has happened, but why now? It's all about BRICS, right? It was all about Russia and Xi, and you saw Xi's body language. I mean, we're BRICS, we are equal to Russia, China, India, South Africa, right? Brazil. But hey, I saw Modi walk in, stretch his hand, and guess what happened? She just showed him the way and said, hey, stand here, like a schoolboy, right? And that for me is a differential, right? And we seem to be playing to it. And unfortunately, our economy seems to be tied in some kind of a knot with the Chinese, which we are not able to untangle. The United States is well on its way to untangle the critical part of it, right? Which is high technology. It really doesn't care about garments. It really doesn't care about anything else, right? It just clearly wants to know, it wants to now control the edge it has on artificial intelligence. So you start seeing this, right? And you start to worry. India, China to pull back from LAC by October 29. Jaish terror offshoot claims hand in Valley ambush search ops. Now, like I said, LAC, line of actual control. Whatever I take, I keep. That becomes line of actual control. This should be in your mind. And all these places, now they're talking about being able to patrol, etc., etc. And nowhere does it talk about status quo ante, which means to go back to exactly where we were in 2020. And the reason why this has happened is because of a kind of a short-sighted statement made by the PM then that na koi aaya hai, na ghusega, and then you ask, agar na koi aaya hai, na koi ghusega, and nobody's in India's territory, why this big deal about the settlement now? All the bucks to start thinking, right? And India, China to undertake coordinated patrolling, line of actual control drawn now. Now, look at this coordinated patrolling. You know what it gives me an image of? China, the big bullies, gives us the finger. Papa gives finger the baby and then walks us and does this coordinated patrolling. Guys, have you ever heard of this? Coordinated patrolling. Right? We should be able to patrol whenever we want, wherever we want. That's how we'll find out what's happening on the other side. Now, coordinated patrolling. Oh, now the Chinese are saying this. Oh, now let's start walking with them. Right? coordinated patrolling. And then he says, line of actual control drones, says Shankar and Raj. What does that mean? That's what I told you. They've taken what they've taken. Power of dialogue achieved broad consensus, says Raksha Mantri. It was a BS as it comes, right? Agreements once reached must be respected, says EM, which we know they never will be. India, China begin disengagement at last two friction points, the Despang and Demchok. But hey, Doval to travel to Russia today for BRICS meeting of NSS. Now, this is what I said. This is what was happening. This entire charade of this deal has the complete imprint of Sergei Lavrov and the bully Putin, right? And we've fallen for it. Doval meets Putin, Wang in dual diplomatic mission. So this is it, right? Doval discusses Russia-Ukraine conflict on BRICS NSA side. This is all happening, right? NSA meets Putin, Wang amid buzz over Ukraine, but it was all about this, right? Will back Pakistan bid to join BRICS as Russia? When they put this in, the pressure was on India, right? India, China begin troops disengagement in eastern Ladakh. India, China talk over Ladakh patrolling points sees advances. India, China reach deal on easing LAC tension. And easing LAC tension and coordinated patrolling. Just imagine, I'm walking, I'm a young kid with my dad. Dad's got my fingers, walking me wherever he wants me to. Beijing will work with Delhi to implement solutions, says China. What does that really mean, right? We are trying to restore trust, says General after LAC agreement. Now the army, poor chaps, right? They took the brunt of it in Galwan. They've been taking the brunt of it ever since then, right? With their hands tied behind the back. And they're going to continue taking it, right? LAC buffer zone may go, no clarity on de-escalation. Over. China agrees to India's patrolling rights in Despang. Next step, de-escalation. Despang and Demchok pullback, just first step towards normalcy. But here's what I got. There was no clarity on whether the planned pullback from the military standoff by a few kilometers will allow Indian troops full access to their traditional patrolling points, PPs 10, 11, 11, 8, 12 and 13 in Despang. There was also no response to queries on whether China agreed to the new patrolling pact near eastern Ladakh in lieu of India's granting some concessions in Arunachal Pradesh. We've granted some concessions. Ladakh deadlock ends. India, China reach agreement on LAC. This all, folks, is being done. One was BRICS and the second was our delusional thinking that Chinese capital will help us get to be a $5 trillion economy. The Chinese capital, folks, works just purely as debt. It puts you in debt just like it did Sri Lanka at usurious interest rates and then grabs that piece of land that of whatever asset that it's loaned its money against, right? And it rarely ever allows high technology, any of that stuff to happen. India, China resume border patrols in big breakthrough. I don't think it was a big breakthrough. Modi, Xi welcome border pact, seek to rebuild ties. Modi, Xi hail LAC thaw at first bilateral in 5 years. BRICS, an inclusive, people-centric platform, not a divisive one, says PM. I think that's wrong. Modi and Xi put seal on LAC pact, pledge to rebuild ties, no joint statement. China talks of important progress, not agreement. China has got a completely different take on this, right? Ice melts, but New Delhi must forever be wary of Xi's China and work on reducing critical gaps in national power. And then we have to do this, right? Government will maintain checks on FDI in national interests, FM. And here's what you got to listen to, right? Weighing in on business as usual with China, this is Ashok K. Kanta. He says, China's demand. One in recent track 1.5 and track 2 dialogues, Chinese scholars and officials did not deny that the status quo has been changed, but expected India to accept the altered facts and to move on to full normalcy in relations. That's the reality. The reiterated four specific demands a level playing field for Chinese companies. And pray why. India came away with a clear indication that the Chinese were not yet prepared to accommodate India either on the issues of the border or on other structural challenges in the relationship. Second, the Chinese are not inclined to address India's long-standing problem of a huge bilateral trade deficit and the impediments faced by Indian companies in accessing the Chinese market. Third, both the United States-led West and China are increasingly securitizing their economies and de-risking and diversifying each other. According to a Rhodium Group report, India has the highest score of all emerging and developing countries as a potential alternative investment destination to China. If India seeks closer integration with Chinese supply chains, global companies might be discouraged from considering India as their alternate node for global value chain. And remember, China only is where it is because of global chain. It's got nothing of its own. It's not going to import any Indian product. Remember that. Fourth, China is still not a market economy. Third, plenum of the CPC in June 2024 doubled down on industrial policy. Fifth, China's rigorous scrutiny of outward flows of investment and technology by its companies aims to maximize domestic value chains and make the country indispensable in global technology production, as a recent Mercator Institute of China study brings out. Going by past experience, it would be naive to expect that China will help build India's manufacturing capacities. Instead, Chinese companies have preferred to invest in sensitive sectors in India, including through acquisitions which led to Press Note 3 in April 2020 before border tensions escalated. Giving free access to Chinese companies will attract low value addition investment and be a recipe for retarded industrialization in a number of sectors that China seeks to dominate the world globally. Will be a slave manufacturing colony to China. 6. The expectation that imports from China can be reduced by boosting FDI from China is not borne out by the experience of other geographies which have received substantial Chinese investment. For instance, ASEAN imports from China increased from 386 billion in 21 to 438 billion in 2023 as sourcing of intermediates from China soared. That's their game plan. Thus, from strategic security and economic perspective, India would do well to take a differentiated policy towards economic relationships with China. And it says here, China crisis has changed India, so there's no going back to 2020, says Tanvi Madan. Delhi has gone from seeing Beijing as a contributor to a constraint to achieving Indian objectives, from the relationship being a source of stability to a source of insecurity, from economic times being considered an opportunity, they're now considered vulnerability. But it's changed. I mean, I don't understand why we are doing what we're doing. From helping India take its rightful place on the world stage, today China is considered India's main competitor for influence in the global south and even within BRICS. And through helping enhance India's strategic autonomy by being a partnership option, today Beijing is seen as a significant constraint to it. Also, the last decade since 2014 border standoff and especially since 2020, India's partnership with like-minded countries have broadened and deepened in unprecedented ways. Shared concerns about China's assertiveness, for instance, have not just driven India-US cooperation in defense technology, economic security and even multilateral spaces, but also incentivized them to manage the differences. It is striking that even while in sensitive negotiation with Beijing, Delhi has not held back as it might have pre-2020 on taking several steps with its partners. These include PM Modi's reply to Taiwanese President La Xingti and the opening of the third Taiwanese representative office in India. India welcoming a US congressional delegation that met with Dalai Lama, participating in the Quad Summit and signing off on tougher language on China's assertiveness in the South China Sea, hosting exercises Malabar and Tarang Shakti, and participating in a maritime reconnaissance collaboration activity with its Quad partners on the sidelines of Australia's exercise Kakadu. Perhaps Delhi has gone from seeing deepening ties with the US and other partners as being a barrier in negotiations with China to believing they are an enabler bringing China to the table, and that's absolutely true. Get over this obsession with GDP. Higher growth no longer comes with faster job creation. India's policy makers need to come up with more reliable indicators of economic development. Employment is one of them. And without that, we are toast. Curbs on FDI from border nations to stay, says FM. Absolutely. Impact of thaw China investment won't surge even if curbs are lifted, says GTRI. Okay. New Delhi is unrealistic to expect a surge in Chinese investment even if the restrictions are eased due to the thaw in diplomatic relations between India and China, think tank Global Trade Research Initiative said Wednesday. He says moving forward, Chinese investments may flow into labor-intensive industries like garments or shoes, while local manufacturing might be further undermined. The high-tech sectors like electronics and electric vehicles, Chinese companies may focus on assembling products in India. with up to 90% of components still being imported from China. This would only deepen India's dependence on Chinese supply chains. Remember, 5 years after their last bilateral Modi-Xi meet in Russia, beware of Shionist game, says Gautam Bambawale. He says, litmus test for any LSE agreement with Xi's China is restoration of status quo ante. And restrictions like those on Chinese telecom equipment must be lifted. And restrictions like those on Chinese must never be lifted. Okay. Trust between two governments has been eroded seriously due to China's action. It can only be rebuilt one step at a time. Hear what he said. He said, she said. This is Saibal Dasgupta. China needed India at the table in Kazan to deal with its own problems that include US pushback. Living with China with tempered expectations, the Shokanta, the thaw in bilateral relations is welcome. India will have to continue to show strategic patience and reduce dependencies on China through economic de-risking. This is the biggest thing, right? Then he says, Xi politics pose a tough question. TK Arun, Modi-Xi meeting puts India-China economic relations back in focus. The worry is not India's large bilateral trade deficit, but its strategic dependence on Chinese product and sensitive technology. BRICS nations to strengthen financial integration, says Modi. This is one of the most lopsided thought processes. And India should do everything to ensure no BRIC currency comes out. Not another brick in the wall. India's role is to ensure the grouping doesn't get a distortionary ideological edge. Absolutely. Some more bricks, but not a Chinese-Iranian wall. And this is T.S. Trimurthy. He says, as the Group 16 summit gets underway in Russia's Kazan today, a former BRICS Sherpa argues India is well placed to keep the expanded BRICS within, which includes Iran, from becoming an anti-West bloc, temper China's dominance, strengthen multi-aligned global governance. So that's fine. Neither should India close relations with the US and Quad, nor its inimical relations with China prevent India from strengthening BRICS. While at the Kazan summit, Russia wants to portray it isn't isolated over Ukraine war. It's time for India to portray it has what it takes to lead BRICS from the front. Putin-India ties a particularly privileged strategic alliance. Putin is using us to the hilt. India is for peace, Modi tells friend Putin. Putin's out everywhere. North Korean soldiers sent to join Russian army south. Going crazy. In Kazan, the global south makes a point about books. But there is no global south. I don't know why everybody calls China and Russia the global south. They're not. BRICS for India is a pivotal plurilateral as it reflects New Delhi's multipolar worldview. PM Modi's visit to Kazan underscores that importance of BRICS in India's foreign policy calculus. But stop calling it the South. US repatriates unspecified illegal migrants from India. US sends back a plane load of illegal Indian immigrants. This is what's happening. Trump comes, we are toast. Quad group of countries take part in back-to-back naval war games. This is our only strength. India, US agree to swap turns. Biden to host Quad summit at home state. India leader in Quad says US before big ticket meet. In Wilmington, juxtaposing immediacy with legacy, Indo-Pacific integration. One of the primary goals of the summit will be to reinforce the Quad's framework on MDA, which has become increasingly critical in linking regional security, supply chains, infrastructure, and technology initiatives. During the last meeting, July 2024, in Tokyo, the Quad foreign ministers announced the expansion of the Indo-Pacific Partnership for Maritime Domain Awareness. That happened. Modi-Biden seal Fab semiconductor deal to add heft to national security. Brilliant. Recognize America's unique position in multipolar world. Seek closer ties. EM. He really has no choice because of this. India-US planning strong supply chain for clean energy, says Union Minister. Navy sets up base to control subs on long-range patrols. Very critical. China's warning shots with minerals that run the world. Restricting access to strategic resources is a classic statecraft strategy that China seems to be preferring, and that's why, folks, we have gone with critical minerals to the United States. But this is what's the problem. Without accountability, justice won't be served. USNY on Pannu case. US seeks Yadav in for may contact MEA Counselor Office. Yadav innocent being made a scapegoat, says lawyers. US indicts ex-raw man over plot to kill Pannu. We don't believe in in taken for granted relations as PM amid Canada chill. Will be satisfied only if held accountable. US envoy. Wake up, sleeping dog, says Pranab Dal Samta about the deep state actors. There's only one, that's from their side, Indian side. US Justice Department charged ex-Indian government over plot to kill Pannu. Jaishankar says Canada must act against extremists. And Justin, army striker plan hit by Trudeau's salvos, had no proof, only intel when we first accused India, says Trudeau. Quad's maritime vision short on strategic interests? I don't think so, folks. So at the end of the day, what's critical for India is the United States and the Quad. Cooperate and consolidate and continue, says Seema Sarohi. The parade of senior Indian visitors, including everybody was there. Commerce rules last week. Goyal and his counterpart signed an MOU to expand, diversify supply chains for critical minerals. Focus on semicon. Collaboration in the semicon domain has progressed well, says Goyal. This, folks, is what is critical for India to balance China. And somebody has said it right. China is on the table because of our growing relationship. So this has worked well in terms of foreign policy. But I am just remember this line of actual control and all this gloop-de-gawk about coordinated patrolling is BS at best. But maybe that's all we have, folks. 3 cheers, Jai Hind.